Welcome. This we will be practicing on the design pattern front. I have a couple of slides, as we do in the past, review submissions. Again, I'll provide a refresher on guidance, and then we will drill. So starting with the reviews. Can you guys see this? All right. So you have material entity at the top. You have an instance of vehicle that participates in the sensor process. A sensor that participates in the sensor process and also participates in the traffic light process. Sensor process that seems to be part of the traffic light process. And then there's an arrow to the sensor process I'm not sure about because it's not labeled. And then you have the sensor process that's an information content entity that's somehow related to an information bearing artifact, a controller, which is part of a traffic light, and so on. So I just walked through that. But I think you could probably figure out which topic was being like represented, which of the examples is clearly traffic light process going on. But tell me, to the extent you can see this, thoughts, comments, concerns, compliments. I have some of all of those. Yeah.
Just the relationship between sensor process and information content.
Uh-huh.
Couple.
Like this here. Sensor process. Well, it's not clear what it is. So I hesitate to say anything about it because I don't know what the other than, what is that? So I don't want to throw stones or anything, but for sure. And that's true of the info content, the info bearing, and the controllers. Yeah, Matt.
Not that it matters because I know this was a little rushed, but sensor also seems to be kind of just floating a little bit. It doesn't seem to be a sub-material entity.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's probably there's just missing an arrow.
Oh, for sure, no doubt. It's not clear what it is. All we do know is that it participates in a sensor process, which presumably means it's continuous, given the domain of participate. So yeah, I can infer that. Okay, anything else?
Well, this points for a moment.
Yeah, right. I was definitely gonna compliment it. It looks pretty, which is good. I like the use of mermaid. It is to me a little, I would make a distinction like visually, using different shapes for instances than I would for classes. I think material entity at the top is a class because it has instances. To visualize that a little better, I typically will use ovals or something like that for classes and then diamonds for instances, just so you don't have to put, you don't have to have that much complexity, or at least you don't have to have the users read through your labels for relations to figure that out. Yeah, but you have, yeah.
There's probably a missing relationship then between traffic light and traffic light process.
Yeah, I assume so. There's some missing instance of relationships. So which is can obscure things, right? Like, so if I had my reviewer 2 hat on and was being super critical and writing like a mean response, which is sometimes what I have to do, I would say things like, I'm not sure if you are making or if you're confused about types or tokens, because I'm not sure which of these, I see some of these are instances and some of these are classes. I'm not sure about most of them though. And so it's hard for me to evaluate. Part of that might be relevant when I'm thinking of things like this relation here between sensor process and traffic light process. Presumably, these are instances, but if they were not, this relationship between them would be problematic on a standard interpretation, because the arrow of part of sensor process, part of a traffic light process, if this was at the level of classes, would mean all sensor processes are parts of some traffic light process, which is false, right? So there's that all sum rule. But if it's at the level of instances, and I assume that is, just inferring, being charitable, I think this isn't at the level of instances. That's not necessarily violated. It is likely the case, so certainly in this design pattern, that some sensor process is related to some traffic light process, because that's the instance level.
Oh, I thought this was just a model, John. I didn't know that this was instance data.
Well, he does have whoever I say here. forgive me, whoever did it, I assume they have instances in mind because there's a relationship between material entity which has instance vehicle. Material entity has instance traffic light, so it's not exactly clear the extent to which that's at play here. But I think at least that was in mind, right?
Tim, was this ours?
No, we're not that pretty.
Yeah, we're not that pretty. We have very similar stuff.
Let's keep going. So I think I know which ones of you guys. I think I saved you guys for last. We have marriage, right? Like this is the marriage case. Pretty clearly. Let's see. So none of the instant stuff here. I think it's reasonable given the previous slide to think that the same person or people made this one. So I'll assume that they had instances in mind. So I'll assume here that these are all instances. So I'm not gonna, knock for the all sum. So let's just look at it though. So process, with the exception of this process, I think is presumably a class. It has no label. Right. One other thing to keep in mind then, it's always helpful to put a legend in, just in general. So even if you don't follow the suggestion that I made about like different shapes, if you have a legend, in this case, it might say something like an unlabeled edge means instance of, right? Like that would be super helpful. You don't want to leave it to the reader's imagination. So here we have an agent that participates in active wedding, agent 2, witness, officiant. Okay, there seem to be pretty good ingredients for modeling like the process of wedding. And an active wedding realized in a marriage. Marriage concretized in a marriage license. The government prescribes marriage license. So what do? Well, first thing, let's check the domain and ranges of realized in, concretized, prescribes, and participates. So pull it up. Let's check them. You always want to do this. I want you to get in the habit of this. So pull it up. You should always be thinking of this when you're making design patterns too, right? So we'll check others' work, we'll check our own. If you have, look up participates and look up realized in, look up concretized in, look up prescribes. We want to check that it is okay that, for example, a process is realized in a marriage where marriage is concretized in, which implies that marriage is an information thing, because information is concretized in. So we want to make sure that this chain makes sense. Okay. Yeah.
So concretized, the domain is a process or a specifically defined continuum, and the range is GDC.
So concretized, is that concretized or concretized?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, concretizes.
Concretized is.
So
The concretized is the inverse of concretized in. So if you look at so you'd flip the domain and range.
inverse would be domain, yeah, so.
So domain is information content in or GDC. So that implies that marriage here is a GDC. Okay, so now we want to check that a process can be realized in the GDC. So then you look for GDC or realized in and see what the range of realized in is. Might be easier to look for realizes.
It has to be a realizable entity.
Has to be a realizable entity. So it looks like
Oh, it's the ranges are, well, the domains, it's an intersection at realizable entity, and then the ranges are process. So I don't,
Mhm.
so,
So it looks like there's a conflict, right?
yeah.
Okay, so but this is the process to sort those sorts of things out when you're evaluating, but also keeping it in mind for yourself. So you want to make sure that the chain makes sense. And there's an issue here, maybe we're spelling some of the ambiguity out. So technically incorrect, right? But you can see even by looking at the domain ranges, like how you might proceed to fix this. There, of course, is some information-y stuff going on. But you got to be clear about how that stuff is concretized and how it relates to the participants who have dispositions that realize things and how those realizations are connected up to the information, right? Which again, that's what we do, right? It's not obvious. All right, we'll pop to another one. All right, let's see, sensor. Looks like another sensor one, love it. We got a sensing process that has output data. And an input signal carries the data. Maybe you want to check that. The data prescribes process, switch process, and a controller participates in it. Input signal also participates in it, and that switch process has output signal, some output signal that is. All right, comments? What do you think?
I did my best.
Yeah. Hey, no, this is a judgment-free zone. This is just like a descriptive kind of just what to do next, right? So don't feel bad.
So the sensor A and sensor one,
Mhm.
they have some type of relationship to sensing process. What is that relationship?
It's unclear. Yeah.
It's okay, okay.
You don't have to answer. I just this in fact I suggest not to, right? Like it's
Yeah.
just kinda like we're just evaluating this as if we have no idea what's going on. We're just trying to figure it out because that's kind of the position you should put yourself in when evaluating or creating design patterns. Because you should assume that people who have no idea what you're talking about are going to be looking at these. So we should look at it and so we have no idea what we're talking about. So, but yes, so that's the sort of thing that might be clarified a little. Also, you know, a legend would be helpful. Yeah, Matthew.
I wouldn't, I was part of this group, but I wouldn't know what to do
Mhm.
with prescribes. I
Mhm.
get it, but I don't know how to make that into something that I could actually say and be a, oh, because prescribes is not a.
So prescribes is a relation in Common Core.
Oh, in common.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Mhm. So I assume that's what you guys were using.
Well, that's what.
Well, that's what they were.
That's
Ian's
Ian.
nodding. Ian's like, yes. Yeah.
No.
Mhm.
Just like, let's get all the terms and just focus on what's actually happening. Try and find that out.
That's not a bad idea, right? And this is a standard practice where you just like kind of describe in your own words what is going on in the use case. And then you kind of, what I do is I do that actually, and then I apply the structure from BFO CCO on top of that, and I kind of fit things in the right boxes. So that's totally fine. And you know, it seems like to some extent, you didn't get to the stage where you're putting it into the more rigorous, precise ontological language. So on that, with that said, let's just look at it from the perspective of like your natural language interpretation of the phenomena, right? So we can evaluate it that way. So you have some sensors involved in the sensing process that output data, and then there's a signal that carries data. I'm tripped up on that, so I don't understand myself, like in the terms of just the phenomena, what that means. So the input signal carrying data. I think, yeah, go ahead.
So there is like an is carrier of
Mhm.
relationship.
Yes.
where The domain is an independent continuant,
Mhm.
which I was thinking of the input signal as that.
Mhm.
That happens, that
Mhm.
exists. And then generically dependent continuant is the range, which would be the data. That's, I
Yeah.
assume that was the right.
Yeah.
relationship.
I'm trying to evaluate this from the perspective of just like the description of the phenomena. So I'm gonna put
Oh,
the
okay.
carrier stuff aside, like the technical meaning.
Oh,
I'm not, so what I'm looking at is I'm not sure what it means for an input signal to carry data.
Yeah, I didn't know
Kind of
that
like
either.
ontological sense, like I'm just trying to get my head around what
I
that
think
means, yeah.
that came from, we were talking about the difference in timing.
Mhm.
Like, it's not this instantaneous thing.
Yeah.
There's some sort of
Yeah.
yeah.
some sort of transfer of that data. The
Yeah.
data doesn't just appear and then suddenly, because and actually it's temporal, but it's also physical. The sensor
Mhm.
is not the traffic light. And so
Yeah.
trying to get the data from the sensor to the traffic light, we were like, oh, it has to have some sort of signal.
It
Yeah.
sounds like, you know, when I call you on your phone,
Mhm.
it sounds like the sense of carrying, you mean, is something like the signal is like information that is then encoded in your phone and produces audio.
Right.
Yeah. Something like that.
And it would be, that's where when it gets encoded,
Mhm.
right, on the traffic signals and
Mhm.
that switch process is what changes and then.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if I would call it data as like what's being transmitted, but maybe it is. I don't know. I'm not a specialist.
We didn't want to call it
Yeah,
information
that's fair.
after all.
But then at the same time, like, so but there's like an interplay here between what I'm interpreting as the data being carried and also the data prescribing. So now I'm not, so if insofar as I understand carrying in the sense that we just described, now I'm lost in the data prescribing something. So, right, like I would think of this as like a protocol. Like there's standards in place that govern how like transmission is conducted, like TCP protocols and stuff like that. And that prescribes or guides how things have to be conducted. You can think of it in this sense as like, or in this sort of case, as like a sieve through which information has to flow in a certain pattern. You get all the noise and it just has a pattern that outputs based on the protocol. Yeah.
It's something like an algorithm that the data like is fed into kind of prescribe the process better than like putting something like that in between.
So definitely algorithms do the prescribing for sure. And in fact, and they do the prescribing and then they have prescriptions on them, like in protocols, right? Algorithms are just instructions, right? For like how to do stuff. So yeah. All right, what about this one? Contract, agreement. Okay, I'm just gonna move on. I think it's just not a lot of time here, and so not a lot, and so I don't wanna, I get it. All right, check this out. Act of ceremony. This is pretty. Somebody did mermaid, I love it. Kudos. What we got? Civil law. Civil law can restrict marriage contracts and influences act of ceremony. Social norms also influence act of ceremony. It's cool. They also can restrict marriage contract. Feels like they restrict in two different senses. So I feel like it's not, I would be worried about an equivocation over restricting or can restrict there. That's okay. Same with influence, but maybe not. Maybe I feel less strongly about that being a potential.
You have can restrict some kind of
Yeah.
statement there because they don't, right? Like,
Yeah. You know, like
that's not a universal that they can restrict. It's more of a can restrict some, right?
right. And it looks like the author here is making a difference. Well, hold on, let me look. They've got a subclass edge, which is good. So the authors made a distinction between different kind of edges. So object properties in bold, dotted edges or dotted lines representing subclass of. It's good. It's good. So there's something of an implicit legend built in. I would want to see an actual legend myself, but I get it. And so then you have, but now I am confused because if person A, I think I see what they were trying to do. So they also use different shapes for the classes, and then presumably the boxes or the rectangles are instances. But that said, person A can't be the parent class of an instance person.
Yeah.
So that implies like act of ceremony is a class. See, it's subclass of intentional act, which means that there's some confusions all over the place.
It's confusing me, John, because your parent classes aren't at the top of the page and it doesn't flow down. Like my brain is having a hard time seeing intentional act and like contract at the bottom.
Yeah.
And then obviously person A would be a type of instance of person, not a subclass.
Yeah. So again, that said, so I think it's easy to remedy. That said,
Yeah.
Let's just look at it from the perspective of the capture, or the extent to which the capture, like, intuitively the domain. So we have, we do have people, gonna need people, or have at least one person. Marriage contracts, type of contract, act of ceremony, influenced by social norms and civil law. There is a intentional act going on. That seems right. So I'm pointing out what seems, useful phenomena or useful to capture. So I'm punting on the relationships because I don't think an intentional or subclass of intentional act is an act of ceremony exactly, but.
And they had a time constraint too.
Yeah.
Right, John? Like obviously civil law does more than can restrict marriage contract, but I just feel like they didn't get a chance to like apply everything from civil law to marriage contract. Like they ran out.
That makes sense. But like I see a lot of what you would need. I see a lot of ingredients, and that's kind of what I want to highlight. So that's good. It's yeah.
So I was going to point out this is for a learning point.
Mm-hmm.
This is actually output of a ChatGPT prompt.
Oh,
Plain language. I was testing,
wow.
testing an approach and it
Wow.
mermaid. And
It
I
sucks.
just dropped it in there to see what it can.
It's bad, man. In that respect,
It's a
like,
starting point.
yeah. So I say it's bad. I'm using different standards on purpose. It's good if you're learning this because I see the struggle. It's bad if this is the output that machine's not going to be learning, you know? So that's what I mean. I didn't want to suggest I was like, oh, this is fine. And now it's terrible. And so it's terrible beginning to it initially. It wasn't terrible initially. Now that I know that it's the end result, bad.
Right.
Let me pop over here. Also pretty, loving it. Like the mermaid. Entity, don't know what 1 and 2. Got some 1, 2 edges over there. That's the only one labeled. It's fine. I think I see what's going on. Entity, it looks like there are different shapes. So there are rounded edge rectangles and sharp edge rectangles. I think that may have been, I'm going to assume that's a mistake. Okay, so it's,
1 and 2 are a mistake.
yeah, I was assuming so.
We didn't want to get rid of it.
Yeah, that's all right. I'll show you in a second. So specifically dependent continuing, independent. So basically you got the hierarchy BFO, or at least part of it up until material and immaterial entity, and then object down. So at the bottom, I guess is where we should be looking. Sensor, traffic light controller. Data is a super type of information, which that's not right, but that's okay. That tells me that you weren't looking at CCO or one of the extension ontologies, and you're like thinking it through yourself, which is not a bad thing to do. It's of course, but you know, I think of these as flipped at least. But and then process the timing of a light. Just so in terms of like the content here, it looks like you spent a lot of more time than others on like just getting down the hierarchy, which is again is good learning experience for sure. So you didn't have that much time to work on the bottom tier stuff, which is where kind of the case was. But we do have some interesting things. So I do, you know, sensor, traffic lights, controller is definitely useful. Data is definitely useful. You misspelled a current. Timing of light. Timing of light. So this is an interesting one because there's a potential like confusion. Not I don't mean you were confused. There's always a potential confusion both in naming and both of classifying.
That doesn't seem like a process.
Right.
It would have to be like active light timing or active
Yeah,
timing
yeah.
of light or something.
Yeah, so the gerund, so timing, it's good. Like that's the standard sort of like locution we would use to capture processes. But it also seems something like a measurement, like it's like the information. You said the timing of the light, like when this 26, right? Like something like that. And again, not saying that you are confused. I suspect, and you weren't. I suspect you, in fact, were thinking of the process out there that you might measure. But when we're creating classes or like labels, really, we want to be careful about like the way we label them to try to suggest the right interpretation. This becomes a lot clearer when we introduce definitions, which we will do as we proceed, so that it's clear what the design patterns are picking out. So that we don't have to rest so much on the label. So here I'm just pointing this out as a learning opportunity for you. Just keep in mind, labels are important, despite some researchers in our community giving talks, Chris Stockert, saying that they're not, and then getting in a fight with me, like we did, about how they're important because they're suggestive of people who don't read the definition.
So time of light, yeah, I see how you could arise. Like, do you suggest them just using like timings?
So I would say something like for the case, so this is what Jay was gesturing at. So when I'm thinking of this in CCO terms. So when I think of processes that involve intentional acts, I use the locution act of. And then when I'm thinking of like the other sorts of acts, like rocks falling down cliffs or something, process of. And that's just for me as an ontologist to keep like disambiguate the label. Usually we don't have to see that. I use RDFS label for that, and that's the ontologist preferred label.
And John, you wouldn't like when I use act of, that's only like I said, like the RDFS label, but my SCOS preferred might be something that like the user will understand better.
Absolutely.
So like active swimming and swimming. So I'll have like active swimming will be like the RDFS label, And then your Scott's preferred label or your like GUI interface label is going to be something like swimming because a person doesn't want to see active swimming.
Yeah.
What the heck's that?
Users will be like imagine if you went to, so imagine if we're building a knowledge graph that was underwriting like Amazon search, like when you go to Amazon and like buying things, and you start seeing things like active swimwear or like swimwear artifact, right? Like that would be absurd. They probably have some, in fact, I'm confident they have some internal standards by which they organize things that differ from the way the GUI represents it. But we can do both too, right? Like they're different. These are just annotation properties. They don't change the logic. You can call it whatever you want. So, but yeah, but I do prefer, and I really insist on using at least one annotation, specifically RDFS label, for the ontologist preferred label. And that is just because these things are tricky even for us. And so it's really important that we keep the labels for us straight. You know, whatever the users want to say, they can say, but like we're supposed to be more precise. And so we want to avoid confusion.
If they want to have a look at a real world example of that, John, they can just go to IKEA.com.
Yeah.
Because IKEA is completely using CCO and BFO. And then you can think, well, geez, what would have been the artifact label for this?
It's true. Yeah, they're not going to use that. What artifact? What do they call their chair? I bought a chair recently. His name was Steve. Like they give him like human names, like Steve Artifact. All right, okay. So this one, also 1-2 punch, got it at the top. Process boundary. I remember having this conversation with you. So time of marriage. So boundaries are, processes that don't have any like process parts. So like birth, death, the moment you say I do, that somehow codifies it magically because language is like that in the law. Disposition of being married. Function of being married. Ooh, that hurts, man. That hurts deep. So functions, this is good though. So functions are types of dispositions. Dispositions are realizable entities. So realizable entities are properties of independent continuants that need not always be manifesting. So like the solubility of salt, like a piece of salt is soluble whether it comes in contact with water or not. I am a professor. I carry that with me. It need not always manifest. I'm not always grading or teaching, right? Like, so these are realizable entities. So roles, we can gain and lose them without like anything material about us change. Dispositions, if you gain or lose them, something materially about the bearer has changed. Again, I said a function is a specialization of dispositions. So there's a material change if you gain or lose a function, but a function it has this normative aspect to it such that the function is why whatever, or the reason its bearer exists. So like a knife exists to cut, that's its function. Like, so being married, probably not the reason the bearers exist or any of the bearers exist. Yeah,
So a role can't have a function. It seems.
that is correct. Not in the sense that we mean function. So again, this is the case where RDFS label is important, like the ontologist preferred label. There are many uses of role. People play roles on TV. Like there are many uses of function, mathematical function that don't fall in here, right? So
and John,
function,
even though this isn't even though this isn't the right way to use disposition, if you did use disposition and you had a subclass of disposition, you would never subclass a function off of a subclass of disposition. You would only subclass a function off of function, which is subclassed off of disposition.
That's right. So there's a bit more structure missing. You would have, I'm assuming this is, instance stuff for the most part, or at least at this point, they're trying to glom on to instances. And so, but you're absolutely right. Disposition of being married would be an instance of disposition, not directly related to realizable. And then similarly, function of being married, insofar as would be a function, would be an instance of function, which is a subclass of disposition. So the logic works out. So that function is also a disposition, is also a realizable. But it's the same one all the way through. It's just how far down do you want to put it as a subtype of classes?
So in this
or subclass, instance of classes.
Being like kind of the why it is.
Yeah, that's right.
What is that for?
That's right.
Role?
For a role,
There is
context based, so the context is important, so, and this is not the case for disposition so much, like. My disposition to jocularity, I carry with me, and it's kind of like about me, and of course, it's triggered in different environments, in different contexts, in different ways, or not at all. I do, it's part of me, right? So role is different. I'm a professor in certain circumstances. I manifest it also in certain circumstances. So when I like leave, when I like go home, you know, I'm technically not professor. But it's fine. I can gain and lose it. I'm not in that special circumstance anymore. Or maybe if that's hard to get your head around, say I like leave the country and go somewhere else where they don't like have professors or they're not familiar with it. I'm not a professor there, right? I'm out of my jurisdiction. I'm off campus. I don't have any authority over anybody, right? You can see something similar when you're talking about like a Customs and Border Protection agent who flies to the Netherlands. They're not protecting the Netherlands borders, you know what I mean? They're domestic. That's where their authority lies. And in fact, as they get closer to the interior of the country, they don't really have the sort of authority that they would closer to the boundary of the country. It's like 100 miles in. That's where their authority stops. So does that make sense?
So if you're a professor, you would say that could almost be an extension of like teachers. So like at all times when you're a professor, you were also a teacher. But in order to be a teacher, you have to like, it seems like it requires the function of teaching. Like
So
it's a-
function is, I think
I
it's
mean,
it's a
yeah,
different
plain
sense of
language,
function
yeah,
that you're
okay.
using, yeah.
So I'm just trying to
I wouldn't even
get,
say
like-
plain language, because I feel
I
like
know.
function isn't as often used in natural language as
Right.
like role is. Like role is the
Right,
tricky
right.
one, right? Because people use role all sorts of ways.
It
Function
seems like there's
is,
some necessary elements of it.
Oh,
that I don't
sure,
know how to
yeah.
Describe it as anything other than a function. but I'm trying to
Yeah, yeah,
understand
yeah.
it here.
I mean, there's a sense of function that captures is like, so I understand the sense of like attempting to represent the essential or necessary qualities of something. And it's in that sense that we're pulling from when we say the reason this thing exists is
Yeah.
because of the function. Just we're being more precise about the sorts of things that have functions. And so, and I think but it is related to that sense of natural language. I think in natural language, we're just often not that precise. So like, is teaching like a necessarily associated with being a professor? No. Is it necessarily associated with having a teacher role? Yeah. And I see, but like you're doing this, but like actually
You're
they're
just
like,
working in the definition.
yeah, but I'm like, there are plenty of professor roles that don't have teaching duties. Like I can buy out of teaching. This is an R1, it's a research institute. So I'm a researcher technically, but I'm also a professor because of the title, right? So think of roles in this sense of the example that I'm using. You think of them as like the difference between a job title and like the dispositions you
So
have.
it's not like you're putting on the role when you're professing or teaching.
Yeah. But I do have to be in the context. Like I can go profess in the Netherlands, but it doesn't make me a professor in the same sense. I have to be in the right context.
The title of it and the role itself.
Well, there's a difference between the title and the sort of like dispositions you have that might help you fulfill it. You can think of like a Python developer who's in between jobs, still a developer, right? They just don't have the job title Python developer. So, yeah.
So speaking of the role, thinking of the professor role, I know that they are like immaterially grounded, but to some extent,
They're just not materially grounded.
oh,
I don't want to say immaterially grounded.
well, okay, that's
They're
fine.
context grounded. And in the specific sense of materially grounded is it's in the philosophical jargon, it's internally grounded. So roles are grounded, they're just externally grounded. And by that, they mean there's a mixture between the internal base and the external base. That's what I mean by context. So it is both a part of me as the ground, or I'm part of the grounding for my professor role, as is the university.
And so the one thing that I wanted to ask, which may be a problem, is the certificate or whatever part of that material ground? Like
What certificate?
so you,
My degree? My diploma.
Yeah, like, well, not, I don't wanna say the degree, because of course, I don't know what specific, maybe we'll say employment contract, right? Without the employment contract, you're not.
Oh,
you don't
yeah,
have-
yeah.
Do you still have the
Absolutely.
role of professor?
So, yes, so you have to, there are a lot of ingredients, right? Roles can get quite messy.
Okay, okay.
And so you have like an authority that has like they are able to, for certain jurisdictions, prescribe like plans that you can pursue or sign up to as an agreement, like a contract, that will then invest in you the authority to do certain things on behalf of that authorizing agent.
Okay.
And in this case, the authorizing agent is a university, and the external authorizing agent is like the National Board of College Evaluators, who gets its authority ultimately from like the Department of Education
Right.
and stuff like that. And if you want to know more about this, there's a paper in ICBO about credentials and the occupation ontology,
Okay.
written by somebody in this room that spells all the details out. Yeah.
How did you not tell?
It was Ian. Oh, that would have been fun. Let me continue on. So I'm gonna skip some of these. I'm gonna hop over to this one. Well, no, let me do this one. I'm just gonna go one at a time now, so we have time, but
That's all right.
what scenario? It is pretty, not mermaid, but it is pretty. I like it. I like the blue. So info content entity looks like they're using CCO, info bearing artifact. So I assume that relationship there is not a class, so like a subclass or subtype. Anything like that. Participates in some, so they're using it sounds like you guys are using the temporalized relations. So is that right? Or like gesturing at the temporalized version, so the sum
trying
times all
We
time.
didn't get a chance to finish out
Yeah.
all of the relationships, like between the sensor and the traffic light process and the sensor process.
Okay, no worries at all. So like let's look at this in terms of like content instead of the relationships and the aesthetics. So we've got vehicle good, traffic light good, controller, of course. They are bearing artifacts, and you've got a process, a sensor process, traffic light process, and it looks like there's a relationship between a traffic light process and a sensor process. And then there's the vehicle participating in the sensor process. So again, like ingredients are here, so that's cool. Let's see, are there any ingredients I would add?
The biggest thing we wanted to do,
Quite complicated, right? Go ahead.
the biggest thing we wanted to do is show that the sensor process requires both the traffic light process and the vehicle.
Yeah.
So, because we were talking about, well, because you had mentioned Buffalo and low light, and so sometimes the sensor can't see your car. And then we were also talking about, well, there's also timing lights. So we weren't trying to do the timing one. We were trying to do the one where it sees your car. So we needed to have the vehicle in participating in the sensor process, as well as the traffic light participating in the sensor process.
I think that's right. Okay, I'm gonna refresher. Here's PFO. Everything, as I said, in the Eleatic heuristic is kind of like most things are kind of grounded ultimately in material entities or independent continuous. And so we do have like the concretization. There's that's triple pattern, this 3-tier like tripartite pattern. We have the information that generically depends on the bearer, concretized in like ink or stuff like that, like the inscriptions that adheres in that. And then this information is about plans and stuff like that. So just reminding you, here are the rules of thumb. Probably the big takeaway is the refresher. When I'm like, just as a word of advice, start with material entities. They're easy to think about, move on to the qualities they have, the processes they participate in, how they participate in them in terms of realization, and then the immaterial stuff, like the boundaries of where these material things are located, as well as when they exist, and then information about all of that stuff. So there's the guidance, and then of course, mermaid. And with that, what relationships exist among information bearers participating in the spread of information from a source? Examples, like the relationships among 10 machines that receive an email from a single machine, or relationships among distinct drives storing identical snapshots of a system. Go forth. Model. Pick your poison.
Back to the sensing.
All right.
Y'all see it?
Yeah.
So
Okay. So where are we starting?
Creating material entity.
Well, okay, so the question is, what relationship exists among information bearers participating in the spread of information from a source? And then it says, select the model one of the following. Relationship among 10 machines that receive an email from a single machine. So that's kind of like BlackBerry. And then relationship among distinct drives storing identical snapshots of a system.
Oh,
So pick one, Jay. Let's just do the first one.
Let's do the first one.
All right. So I guess where are we starting at? Information content entity or?
No, I don't think you have to go that far up. Let's give me a second.
And anyone else online, feel free to jump in and offer up ideas and suggestions because
So I'm looking at CCO to see if there's like an email machine or something.
there's like a computer device. We can start there, right?
Okay.
Email software application,
Software
an
app.
information worker software application that is designed to enable a user to compose, edit, send, and receive email messages. So why don't we
All
use
right.
that?
So
And
we've
then-
got software app,
So it's email software application.
Yeah.
email.
And
Okay.
then that is an information worker software.
That what is? I don't know what that means when you say that is.
So like it's a subclass of information worker software.
Jay, as you can see on the screen, I'm starting at the top and making my way down. I don't have the
Oh,
technical
okay,
capability
okay.
to add.
Let's
So, you
start,
see-
well, here, let's start at independent, well, we can start at continuant. You want to start at continuant?
That seems aggressively high, but that's fine.
Here, no, we'll go down further. Hold on. Let's start at, well, we understand it's a material entity. We understand it's a material artifact. So just start at application software, which is a type of,
So.
What, Jay?
which is a type of information. So we have an information processing artifact. Maybe that should be the top.
Information processing artifact.
What
Okay.
entities are involved in this?
Okay.
We have an information worker software.
Information worker software.
And then we have an email software application.
In the same hierarchical structure.
Not the drive.
Yeah, that's the final subclass we need there.
All right, information processing artifact, information worker, and then what was the next one?
Information worker software and then email software application.
Okay.
And then I think the next thing we
Yeah,
want,
I need you to stop jumping ahead, brother. I can't do it as quickly as you're trying.
sorry,
So I have information worker software, and then what?
Spread of information.
email software application.
The spreading has to be.
Absolutely, then here, I got the next part for you. Okay, so then.
Email software, what?
Application.
App. I think that is C.
Green side.
Wait, it's right in the whole.
This isn't working, but that's fine.
And then I think what
Okay,
we want,
Jay, look at the screen, please. I can't move ahead, so we're gonna have to switch to PowerPoint. I can't do this. I don't know how to, unless someone knows the code for this.
hey, John, we're having massive problems with Mermaid.
Right, because we just don't know.
Oh.
Give me a minute. Maybe I can share my screen and drive this.
You want to just move over to PowerPoint real fast?
I consider them.
Okay.
Oh, I've stopped sharing as, I'll hand it over to OB or someone else, but otherwise,
The subclass.
Yeah, I can share.
Okay, we can share.
so
Give me 1 minute.
Okay.
Were you typing down everything I was saying, Obi?
No.
I have some of it, just if you just share. The first one is information processing artifact. We
Can
can
you see
start
my
there.
screen?
Yep, we can see it.
All right.
So the first one
So,
Information processing artifact.
Yeah.
I just want you to see it. We were playing around. Looking for AI in there.
Information what?
Processing artifact.
I believe
So,
so, yes.
that was
It
floated.
was not.
I did.
Next one down is information worker software.
Knowledge graphs, and it's got.
On the issue.
Oh, I know, I just thought it looked so pretty.
Okay.
This is.
The next one is email software application.
Oh, and I was like, if you go, info data.
It's not great.
Info data section.
Email.
Worker,
No, email software application.
sorry, email software.
Quick question, so I have a diagram of CFO on my notes, is there a good one of CCO? Cause I,
Okay.
and I don't.
All right, the next thing we want to do
One of them
is we want to create 10 instances off of email software application. So we want to have like email software application 1, email software application 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Because we have 10 devices, right? So the
Yeah.
question is asking for 10 devices.
So we need just like figure out a new object and then do 10 of them.
And they need to be typed off. They're going to come off of email.
Oh, yeah.
So you're gonna have, but you're probably gonna have 10 of those in what was it? In row D as in Delta?
Well, so.
None of this.
Yeah, 10.
So the email, so we're.
Not use email software. It's going to be, we want to have, so you know how like individuals will be a type of a class.
So what do you want them to write, Jay?
Well, I just want them to be email software application 1, email software application 2, email software. They're going to be types of.
Okay, so individuals of the email software 1, email software 2, right?
Yep.
So it'll be just email 1, email 2, like the software apps, 10 of them, so that we have those instances below that class.
Where would act?
Cause like-
No one.
I'm trying to think
For
in
the
terms of like
timing,
sending a.
where should that fall under?
Right, so the information contained in the laptop.
We don't want to name them email because they're going to be receiving an email. We need to name them like
Act of, like, as opposed
name them
to.
email software application 1, email software application 2.
Where should act of?
Alright, the paper. Yeah. That would be.
I know it's a long name, but sometimes these.
Just do abbreviations, email soft app, more.
Yeah, you could do an ESA 1, ESA 2. Yeah.
Figure that out. Because
It's a class of.
So then would it be like woefully incorrect to say that like these two drives participate in a process? with these instances?
Where are the other objects are they showing?
You mean like-
Yeah.
Um,
Computers are.
That's the
computer.
I need to change.
I'm wondering if we're hitting a code issue right now, because none of the objects are appearing, right?
Yeah.
I think I need to update the edges. A, B, C,
And then
D,
it's at least like, I guess maybe.
it's E,
No, you don't.
with D, build design.
All of these are going to be types of.
Let's see. Okay, D, where are you? C build.
ESA 1 is there.
B build.
Like a similar.
C build. D. What's going on?
But the problem is.
Are we built, what is build and design?
That's ignore, that's a relationship.
D goes to D, G.
Those are the
wow.
relationships connecting. I think we just need to figure out how to have another, diamond.
And then find out some way to like come around the process. Yeah. But for now, participates in.
To D. Okay, hold on.
Too bad this isn't like native to.
Let's say
Excel.
D. Um, oh, hold on. I think this will work. Let's say C dash dash
Yeah, so like for class.
PSA dash dash. Where would that be? E? But then where are you? E. So that's here. What? Oh, I know why. Delete this. How do you make this out? Okay. EF. So now if I have, okay, there you go. I just need to clean this up. This.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's a purple triangle. That's an individual. There should be 10 of them.
Yeah, I'm just trying to like design.
Sure. Yeah.
So if I do C that's ESA.
I thought that isn't there a plugin with Visual Studio where I can just code this in?
I'm gonna go straight. So the email.
In theory, yeah, but yeah, just plug it in. It doesn't seem that simple, Jay.
I'm gonna have to.
Figure this out. He's doing it well though, right here. Look.
No, he's doing a good job. No, it's fine.
Listen, why don't we just do like 3 and we'll move out?
Okay. Yeah, just do 3 because we understand that we would do 10. Obi. Not gonna change anything. I think 3 is enough.
Yeah, let's
D. Okay, D is missing.
You know what I mean? Like, does the rest of the group agree? The 3 show that we would just do
right now. I'm going to submit this out.
I think they're all on the same plane though, right?
Yeah, they're on the same plane, so I got to rearrange.
Yeah.
I need to do.
So now we need an email. So let me find email.
Okay, so if I take out this, what happens?
The build and design is just the relationship.
There you go.
Yeah. Boom.
Yeah.
All right. Can we make them all?
Ready? Tell me when you're ready for our next thing.
I'm ready.
Okay. So now what we're gonna start with information bearing artifact.
Okay, so 1 minute.
It's gonna be very similar to A, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Information bearing artifact. And then that's gonna have a subclass which is message.
Hold on.
Take your time.
It's gonna have a subclass that is message. So
yeah, so that's the top of the chain.
And then
it's gonna
yeah. And then child is message.
okay.
And then the child of that will be email message.
so we're looking that way for you.
I will be
There's no wrong, right? Like this is the right path.
No, yeah.
We need to turn it into.
Okay.
give me 1 minute, let me connect this real quick.
Sure.
Can I do this? No, I can't.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to figure out this about like.
So we have we have G,
Give me some.
we have F. No, that's yeah, F is fine. F is to say yes, say IBA, which goes to G, and then I can say G dash dash M for message, and
Way before the.
dash dash goes to H. So that then H goes to I. There you go.
Cool. Now
Is
you're
that-
gonna make, an instance off of email message, and we're just gonna call it email message one.
It's not material.
Mm,
Okay, we're on the same now. Now they're like relabeling products.
As if there's some one-to-one match between email and. I just get.
okay.
Okay, now go back up to where we have the ESAs. I want you to make one more ESA and just call it ESA 11. We're just gonna pretend that we have ESA 1 through 10, but we're not gonna make them all. But we'll do ESA 11.
But it's not like the letter.
Right now, it's not like the GDC.
I see. Okay. So because we were trying to figure out like.
Okay.
Okay, now all we have to do is we have to create a relationship between email message one and ESA 11, which is ESA 11 is gonna send ESA is just, we're gonna just create a relationship called send email. And so ESA 11
Let me just.
is going to send, is gonna do an object property
Hey, literally. it's-
between ESA 11 and email message one, and then we're gonna say it sends,
I would think of like. Think of it.
Yeah.
Okay, definitely there's like electricity. I'm thinking
and
of-
then we just have to go and then we just say sends. We'll just use the object property send, and then we'll just use another object property receives, and then we just have to have that ESA 1, 2, and 3 receive email message one.
So.
And then I think we're done.
Like it's specifically dependent,
Firmware.
maybe we.
Just
but
go
on-
to good,
specific version.
and then I want
I mean, it's simple, but I don't think we need to overcomplicate this. But what does the rest of the group think?
can you walk me through the last part? Send message.
Yeah, so the send message, we're gonna create I would just use send because we're sending the message. We don't have to use a message, right? So we're just gonna create an object property, which is send. And so what we're gonna have is, we're gonna have that ESA 11 sends email message one.
Now you have a permit.
And I feel like
They better not say that. That's kind of what was.
I don't know why, our email message one, why doesn't it look like ESA 2?
And so
Is
we're
it being treated as an instance, or is it being treated as
but I think like
as a class? I'm not sure.
sending something, they just never change it out.
This is why we think.
Like they're all, see, message and email message are triangles.
Okay.
I don't think they should be triangles. They should be squares because they're classes.
Okay.
This makes it a little more concise.
Oh,
Then I don't know why there's a relationship between ESA 3 and whatever this is down the message.
Really?
Feels closer.
Okay, what is a realizable?
New
definition. These are things I didn't realize.
I know, so they got. It's not gonna do anything with it. So we not even realize like there are.
I see what you're doing now. Okay.
Parent class is like, okay, let's talk.
The purpose of.
Adam is pretty. It's not pretty, but
No. And then, okay, so now we have ESA 11 is sending the message. And then that message is then the message is going to be received by ESA 1, 2, and 3.
okay.
Looks like you have a line from message to 2. Now we just need that line from message 1 to ESA 3 and ESA 1.
What's being realized.
Hold on.
I think. I still don't understand what the big green box in the middle is.
Pretty low.
You said it's what?
I don't know. There's a
Yeah, let him finish. We'll get to it.
What, Obi? I'm sorry, Obi. What did you ask?
No, I was trying to figure out what you wanted to be in between this.
Okay, snapshot will go.
Oh, so I want no, there's nothing from ESA 3 to ESA 1. What I'm saying is message 1
Mhm.
is sent.
Info for each state.
So ESA 11 is sending message 1.
State is a type of info.
And message 1 is being sent to ESA 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, hold on. I got it.
It's way hard where I'm like,
Make
oh,
sense?
there's to an extent.
I feel like
don't
it's
care about that person.
Maybe.
But-
Because like in storage.
I mean, yeah, I'll show you guys now, but. Okay, would you mind if I sent this to you?
But yeah,
I'd love to see it.
So,
Okay, and then
So this is what you're actually doing.
okay, and then ESA 11 doesn't have a relationship between it and email software application. Email 11 needs to have the same relationship that ESA 1, 2, and 3 have between software application, email software application, and itself, because it is a type of that.
It's GDC copyable.
okay.
So.
C to
Okay, that's a good response. Good response.
Okay, so like it would go, it would go GDC information and content, or information group. Content that we.
Which.
I'm going to
That's specific.
going to
Specific information.
email.
There's kind of a part relationship there.
Okay, so how to specify.
ESA 11 is what? What a beautiful diagram.
Now there should only be 4 triangles.
And then.
Sorry, there should only be 5 triangles, or not triangles, diamonds, right? The only diamonds should be our instances, which are ESA 1, 2, and 3, and ESA 11, and message 1. So I don't know why email message is shaped like that.
Like, how should we?
Message should be like that.
Go about like,
Oh,
You know what I mean? It should be shaped the way that information artifact is.
Something similar to this condition.
I think
That makes sense?
you would think like why something.
yeah.
Why is something.
Hold on. Let me see.
Oh, you can't look access the same.
Right.
That's interesting.
Similarly, if you make a claim about. And that's where I think it's not realizing it's not
If you're thinking about like, whether that could resolve. So think about it that way. You realize like
It's so.
If you find yourself on probably something like some sort of program or anything like that.
Okay.
It has to be.
That's not.
Because I love the story.
Jocularity.
Anyone or mode. Put me in the right circle. Tattoo it on my body.
And then we said it would be experience.
Someone's saying.
My own scary that. Scares the software.
Yeah, and that, this.
Oh, yeah. That's branch.
We're almost there. We're just trying to fix
Okay.
some shit.
Is
it the, okay,
That's.
so.
Somehow some of our classes are looking like instance data instead of classes. I was trying to fix.
I'm sorry, not bearing entity, content entity.
Content entity is the GDC.
Still so fast.
How do you say coming soon? What is this?
Okay.
Yeah, go back to your editor. John's here. John can probably tell you.
Nice.
So John, we don't want all these we only need diamonds for ESA 1, 2, and 3, and 11, and then email message 1. For some reason, email message, which is a class, and message are being represented as diamonds. I don't know why.
Let me see. Let me look. So you've got brackets, well,
And send message shouldn't be, that should be a object property.
Mm-hmm.
It'd really just be send, but
Yeah. So then IBA, so edge connections between nodes. And you're saying, say that one more time, which one is not supposed to be a diamond?
so the only instances here are email message 1 and then ESA 1, 2, 3, and 11. So we didn't do all
That's like-
10. We're just doing 1, 2, and 3 to prove like, oh, okay, we'd have 10. And then 11 is the one that's actually sending the email. And then 1 through 3 is representing 1 through 10 that's receiving the email.
So send message isn't supposed to be a diamond? Is that what you're saying?
Now, send message is actually supposed to be send, and it's just supposed to be an object property, which is a relationship between ESA 11 and message 1.
I see.
ESA 11 is sending message 1.
Yeah, so let me, so can you, is there more content to this text here? Can you scroll up or down on the left-hand side? Let me see. Okay, so you've
Obi's the one that's driving.
got it. Okay, so you say brackets, brackets, brackets for the diamonds. You've got, so you do have why send message as a diamond. Like that's the syntax for the diamond. So you introduced a diamond there. So that's why you're getting that send message. If you want to relate to object property, like if you want to label an edge, the way you do it is if you scroll down, in this case, what you'd look for the key for ESA 11 and the key for email message 1. We'll scroll up and I'll tell you what it is because it's listed there. So ESA 11 is Z and email message, what is it? Email message 1, that is J. So what you do is you would have, if you scroll down again, you'll have an arrow from the ESA 11 key to the email message 1 key. And then between them, you will have the label for the like sends message. And that will label the edge.
All right, that fixed that, I think, right?
Yeah. So you can probably delete that send message up above. The one with brackets around it.
Yep.
Yeah, that one too. Oh, right.
And then how do you fix message and email message are not representing as classes? They're
So
I don't know.
again, this will be another case. So if you'll scroll up, you have email message there. It's got the brackets around it. So that's indicating as a diamond. If you want it to be a class, you'll use, I assume you're using the rounded rectangles, you'll use just parentheses instead of the brackets around it.
It could be pattern with, I think that you might have something there because, right?
No, so you'll put parentheses instead of brackets. So right now it's I bracket email message close bracket.
Yeah.
You'll just put parentheses.
just shift 9, shift 0. Yeah.
Email is still.
All right, and then do it the same thing for message.
So that email would be. So I have it kind of this class.
I'm gonna send mine in along with yours, so we know.
But maybe not.
Oh, I see.
It's still looking really weird, but okay.
It's all right. You're getting there though.
Much more knowledge than you.
Why doesn't it have information bearing artifact up at the top the way that the other classes are? It's like,
I'm not sure. Let's look at it. Sometimes you have to play around with the ordering and sometimes you have to go all the way to the top. You just scroll up real quick. And sometimes you see how it says flowchart TD. That means top down. Let's see, what is it? Instead of TD, replace that with LR, I think it is.
what's LR mean?
Left, right. That sometimes will
Still
fix.
doing it though. See, it's like,
Now
like-
this tells me then that I need to look down at where the ESA 3 is relating to that green box. So then let's scroll down. ESA 3, that's F. F is related through IBA to G, where G is the information bearing artifact. So
ESA 3 shouldn't have a relationship there.
Okay.
The relationship it should have is from email message one
Mhm.
and that it's receiving it, which it is.
That might solve some of this.
I think if we get that rid of it, then it'll change the structure and you'll see
Mhm.
everything that's left.
As a real.
I
It
don't know
could
if we
be-
need-
Very
I don't know
good.
if we need that at all in this.
You see OB where that is? Why PSA 3 is connected to information bearing artifact? Because it's definitely not a parent of information bearing artifact.
Information content.
So what kind of relationship
Is
between?
generically that generically depends
That's one of the hard things too, right, John, with Mermaid, is the fact that like, it doesn't have logic built into it, so it can't tell you, hey, you can't do this. You can't have
Very
a,
basic syntax, right? You have to put the logic in
you have
yourself.
to know the logic yourself. You have to know that an instance can't be the parent of a class.
That's right. Yeah, unfortunately, it's not going to check that.
Yeah.
So with this, pencils down. We are at time. So congratulations on another round of practice concluding. Do me a favor. Don't work on this anymore. Send it over. We'll talk about it next time.
We're like so close.
Huh?
We're so close though. We're so close.
I know. I was right. Like you're getting closer and closer. This is progress. So I like this because at the end of or as we get closer to class, I'm going to show you how you progressed in a beautiful diagram display of the patterns you've been developing. And I'll put like Sarah McLaughlin on it, and it'll be like love and angel. It'll be great. All right, guys. See many of you soon.